Welcome to the Election 2020 broadcast. Weighting polls is super important because it allows us to accurately represent all demographics throughout the state. Say there's a demographic that is significantly underrepresented in a state. Um, Weighting the poll allows us to make that voice equal to everyone else's. Aggregating polls is super important because it allows us to gain higher confidence in the number. And when choosing polls, it is really important that you are able to find the best poll, make sure it's the most credible. For this, we each chose three polls for the Senate races. I have Arizona as my state, and my three polls for Arizona are the Monmouth University poll, the YouGov poll, and the Ipsos poll. Uh, The Monmouth University poll was taken in October 9th through the 13th, 2020. The method they used to collect the data was cell phone and landline, and this poll was weighted to race, gender, age, education, and party preference. It has Democrat Mark Kelly with 51% and Republican Martha McSally with 45% for their prediction. My second poll, the YouGov poll, was taken on October 13th through the 16th, 2020. The method they used was online survey, cell phone, and landline, and it was weighted to gender, age, race, education, and party preference. It had Kelly with 52% and McSally with 41%. And my last poll, the Ipsos poll, was on the 21st through the 27th of October, and it was an online survey. It was weighted through gender, age, race, region, and education. And like the Monmouth poll, it had McSally at 51%, or sorry, Mark Kelly at 51%, McSally at 44%. And after aggregating these polls, I had my aggregate Democratic number at 49.59% and my aggregate Republican number at 44.22%. With this conclusion, I would say that Mark Kelly, Democrat, is going to win the Arizona Senate race because the three polls that I chose were very credible, and after aggregating them, you can see that Mark Kelly has a not substantial lead, but he's got a pretty good lead over Martha McSally. And with only a few days left, I think that he will win this one.
I'm doing the Iowa Senate race. It's a race between Teresa Greenfield and Joni Ernst. And so with the numbers that I was able to come up with, I was able to get a 93% chance that Teresa Greenfield wins, and I'll kind of work backwards from there. You can see here I have a 49% of 49% of voters will vote blue, and about 46% of voters will vote red. And the reason I came up with this is because I looked at three different polls that each had 501 people polled, and these were the numbers they gave me. And so then using a weighted average, I was able to come up with these values. And for the margin of error, the reason it's a lot lower for the aggregate polls than the individual polls is because for the aggregate polls, I'm using 1,500 people. I'm using three different data points, whereas here I'm using only 501 people. And so there could be a lot more variation in the data. And just a little background on the polls, Monmouth University, which was rated A plus by 538. All these were all within the last week and a half, and all their methods were live, cell, or home caller. So they would call your cell phone and have somebody on the other side ask you questions, or call your landline. And it was about half and half for all these polls. And they're weighted on party registration, self-reported party, gender, age, race, ethnicity, and education. And because they rate on the census or weight on the census and weight a lot, they are generally regarded as a really good poll.
This is the 2020 election class broadcast for the Senate election in Kentucky. This is between Mitch McConnell and Amy McGrath. For this, I'm using data from three different pollsters: the Quinnipiac University poll, Mason-Dixon Polling and Strategy, and Signal. All of these polls use weighting and are considered highly rated. The Quinnipiac University poll was taken from September 10th through 14th. Mason-Dixon Polling Strategy was taken from October 12th through 15th, and Signal was taken from October 19th through 20th. The reason I include the Quinnipiac data is because it is considered super accurate and helps me get more of a sense of information. The aggregate estimate for the Democratic nominee is 40.99%, so pretty much 41%, and the aggregate estimate for the Republican nominee is 51.7%, so nearly 52. That other percentage, it doesn't add up to 100. That other percentage is going to a third party. Given all this information and a calculated percentage for a Republican winner, which in this case is Mitch McConnell, is nearly 100%. As we have a large sample size, this makes it more easy for it to be that high.
I am looking at the Maine Senate race between Sarah Gideon, a Democrat and current Speaker on the Maine House of Representatives, and Suzanne Collins, a Republican and current member of the Senate. I looked at three polls. My first poll is from Pan-Atlantic Research, taken on October 2nd to the 6th. There were 600 likely voters polled in this online survey, and it predicted that 40% of the population will vote for Collins and 47% of the population will vote for Gideon. My second poll is from Colby College, taken on October 21st to the 25th. There were 874 likely voters polled in this live caller survey. It predicted that 44% of the population will vote for Collins and 47% of the population will vote for Gideon. My third and final poll is from Survey USA, taken on October 23rd to the 27th. There were 1,007 likely voters polled in this live caller survey. This poll predicts that 49% of voters will vote for Collins and 51% of voters will vote for Gideon. When I aggregated the results from these three polls, my combined prediction is that 45.06% of the population will vote for Collins and 48.62% of the population will vote for Gideon, with a margin of error of 1.96%. When these values are placed in a simulation, this simulation predicts that 99.993% of the time, Gideon will win the seat, and 0.007% of the time, Collins will win the seat. Given this, I predict that Sarah Gideon will win the Maine Senate seat in this year's election.
In Montana, we have Democrat Steve Bullock running against incumbent Senator Steve Daines, representing the Republican Party. This race is extremely close because for the first time since 1988, Montana only has two senators on the ballot. Candidates from the Green Party and the Libertarian Party both withdrew from this election. Current polls are showing a 1-point difference between the two candidates, with Steve Daines leading with 48% of the vote. This aggregate estimate was made using polls from Montana State University Billings, Public Policy Polling, and Siena College with the New York Times Upshot. They polled 2,190 likely voters in the state of Montana and weighted with age, gender, party identification, and education, with the New York Times also weighting by the region of Montana. All the polls also weighted to the US Census. While this race is extremely close, I predict that Republican Steve Daines will keep his seat on the Senate because Montana has been a historically red state, and I don't think this year is the election where it will flip to blue.
Hello, this is my broadcast for the 2020 Senate race in South Carolina between Democratic nominee Jamie Harrison and incumbent Republican Lindsey Graham. I looked at the three most recent polls taken from October 22nd through October 26th to make this broadcast. My polls are from East Carolina University, Data for Progress, and Starboard Communications. These three polls used a combination of online web panels, phone calls, and SMS respondents to gather their data. The total sample size of these polls is 1,959 people. The aggregate estimate for Harrison is 46.39% of the vote. The aggregate estimate for Graham is only 47.17%, only 1 point above Harrison. The margin of error is 0.02% with a 95% confidence. The percent for Harrison to win and gain the seat is 23.05%. The percent for Graham to win and keep his seat is 70.05. However, ever since June, these two candidates have been flipping for who is in the lead. And as Graham is only 1 point ahead of Harrison in the vote, it is very hard to determine who will win. For the sake of my broadcast, I am claiming that Graham will win, as he has a 50% higher chance of winning the seat at this moment. However, there is still a chance for unknowns to occur.
Hello, and welcome into my 2020 Senate election forecast. In the beginning, picking for the Senate, it was difficult. We started looking at simulations, which is basically compiling poll numbers and aggregates and seeing what are the odds of different results happening. And it would show you, 10% of the time there's 51 seats, 20, there's 52 seats for Democrats, 30% of the time there's a tie, right, et cetera, et cetera. It shows you what's most likely to happen in the Senate. And we had difficulties with that, and we couldn't actually create a simulation. So instead, we wanted to narrow down to some states and then calculate those aggregate those polls and percentage that a Democrat would win, and from there see who would have control of the Senate. We rolled it down to 46 guaranteed Republicans and 47 guaranteed Democrat states. So that leaves 7 up for grabs: Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, Iowa, another Georgia, and Montana. And then looking at our data, I would like to start by talking about some Democrats that we think are more likely to win these states. We took, using our equation and taking aggregate polls, which we've already talked about, we can say confidently that Arizona is a heady Democrat, which is a flip from last year. It's going to be approaching 100% chance that Democrats take Arizona. North Carolina, also a flip, is going to be flipping Democrat. It's over 90%. And on top of that, Maine will also be flipping Democrat. There's over a 90% chance again that Maine will be flipping Democrat. Now looking at the Republican side, South Carolina is 0.2% flipping Democrat, so it's going to stay Republican. Montana has a 35% chance of Democrat, so it's probably going to stay Republican. And then on top of that, there's a Georgia election, which is quite favored in the Democrats' half. It's looking over 90% chance, but again, it's difficult because the election has 2 Republicans, and it's a special election, so this could be difficult. We may not know exactly on election day. But taking into account Maine, Arizona, and North Carolina, on top of Georgia, we can confidently say that we feel it is more likely than not that the Democrats will take control of the Senate. And at the minimum, we can feel very confident saying that they will have 50 of the votes. So we see a minimum 50, probably 50 for Democrats, and maybe even 52nd seat. So we see it more likely that the Democrats will have control of the Senate, and at the minimum, 50 seats for them.
Hi, my name is Yaniv. I will be predicting the outcome of the general election. And the way we did it is we copied the method of 538, where we took aggregated polls and created simulations for the election. We created about 500 simulations compared to the 538's 40,000. And in their simulations, they had Biden win with 89% chance that he wins and an 11% chance that Trump wins. And in our simulations, we had Biden winning 68.8% of the simulations and Trump winning 31.4% of the simulations. And in this graph, this red line represents 270 electoral votes. So anything to the right is Trump's win, and anything to the left is Biden's win. And the highest outcome that came to be was Biden winning in a pretty close electoral vote outcome. And our election, like I said, our prediction is Biden winning 68.8% and Trump having a 31.4% chance of winning.